Hello class, my name is Gary Ganser. I am one of the students on the online class. My class project for hardware is replacing a power supply in this Dell Optiplex 520 desktop computer. This computer was brought to me because it was smelling of burnt dust and that, and believed that the power supply was going bad, so we're going to replace it here. First thing I want to do is unplug this computer, and I'm going to push the power button in the front to drain any residual power, and then I am going to unplug the power cord on the back at the power supply and lay that off to the side. I want to open up the cover here so I can get at the components inside. So I'm going to pull back on this latch here. This is what holds the top down. It's a locking device, and I can lift the cover off, revealing the components inside. Here I have the motherboard. This is the cooling for the CPU, the cooling fan, power supply here, a CD-ROM drive here with the hard drive down below. And so we're going to replace this power supply. To do that, we're going to remove a couple of components to make it a little easier to get at that. So the first thing I want to do is remove the CD-ROM drive, and there I can just lift this latch and slide this back a little bit, and that will release out of the slot that holds it. And there's a 4-pin Molex cable that powers the CD-ROM, and I can just unplug that and then lay this off to the side. And then here I have the hard drive down below. I'm going to remove this hard drive tonight because it'll make it a little easier to get at this power supply and some of the cords, and especially plug that SATA cable in on the hard drive. So this hard drive is mounted in a sled, and there's two latches on the side that I can squeeze together and push this to the back, releases it, and I can lift it up out of the slots that it sits in. And here you can see the 50-pin SATA cable, and I'm going to unplug that. And because this data cable is so short and I don't want to lay it anywhere here on the motherboard, I'm just going to remove this and lay this off to the side, and you can see that there's a sled that's protecting everything on the bottom, so it's safe to lay down. I have another cable here. I have a 4-pin auxiliary cable here. It's got a locking tab right here. I need to remove that. That's going to the power supply, so I'll take that out of place, and I will carefully remove this cable here. It's kind of tight up here along the motherboard where the bracket that holds the CD-ROM drive is, so I don't want to cut the cables. And the last cable I have here is the 24-pin P1 cable going to the motherboard, and that one has a latch there on the side. I can squeeze that and remove that out of place. And then the last thing I have to do is remove two screws on the back of this power supply that holds it into the back of the computer. And those taken out of place, I can remove this power supply. Now this power supply has a latch here on the inside that all I have to do is push it down. I don't have screws or anything, so I can push this down and just push it towards the front of the computer, and that'll release it, and I can lift it up out of place. And just by looking at this power supply, I can see a lot of dust and dirt that's built up along here inside there and that, so I'm just going to take that out. We happen to have a new refurbished one here that's all nice and clean. So first thing I want to do is I want to look at this switch here on the power supply and ensure that's set at 115. It's 115/230. In the United States, our main power, general power, is 115, so we want to ensure that that is set at 115. So we're going to install this pretty much we're going to go in the reverse order as we did to take it out. So we'll set this down, we'll push it to the back until it locks into place. We'll take our 2 screws and put them in. And then we're going to plug in our 24-pin P1 cable. There's the locking mechanism to hold it onto the motherboard, and it will only go in one way, so we'll be good there. We line it up, push it down. Next we're going to install our auxiliary cable. This is a 4-pin auxiliary cable. You can see the locking tab here to lock it on the motherboard, and then there's a couple of beveled corners off on here that so you can only set it in one way. And we're going to slide it down here, and as I stated before, that this bracket is kind of tight against the motherboard, so you want to slide those wires in one at a time around there to get this down below the motherboard, and lay it along the side. And we'll reattach this auxiliary cable. Now we're going to install our hard drive. So here we have our data cable, which we didn't remove off the hard drive, but here we have, that's where our 15-pin SATA cable goes, and there's a little notch there that allows you to put the SATA cable in only in one direction. And if you look at the SATA cable, there is that little notch right there to hold that in. So we can plug that in, and then we're going to slide this back down those 4 guides there for the hard drive. Slide it down, everything's out of the way, and push it forward till it locks into place. And then we're going to reinstall our data cable back on the motherboard, and there's only one way it can go in. There's a little notch right there that slides in, so you can only slide it one way into the motherboard. And we will install that. Now we're going to install our CD-ROM drive, and here we have a 4-pin Molex, and we want to ensure that we install that correctly, and there is 2 slots on each side there, or notches that allow us to only put this in one way. And if you look here, the corners are beveled for only one way, so we'll insert that there. We have 2 cables here that we don't need, so we're going to hold them up out of the way, drop this down, and push this forward till it locks in. And now we have the power supply installed correctly. We want to ensure that all of our cables are tight, that we didn't knock anything loose as we were working inside here. So we'll make one quick check again, and we'll leave this 15-pin SATA cable and this 4-pin Berg cable aren't being used, so we'll leave those back here out of the way. Everything looks okay, so we'll install the cover again. Lock that down. We'll install the plug, and the plug has got 2 beveled sides on it, so it can only go in one way. We'll install that back in the computer, and we'll look and we'll see if we get a green light when we plug it back in, and that'll indicate that everything's starting to look good. And there's our green light, and then it went off. Our monitor's on, so we're going to turn the power on. I'm going to bring this monitor up so we can see if it powers up correctly. You can see it's booting up just fine. It's going to go to our Windows, and in this instance we have Windows XP on here, and I would say that we had a successful installation on a power supply and everything's looking okay. So we're going to assume that we are now done with this and it works just fine.